We're joined now by the Public Servants Association spokesperson, Claude Naicker. A very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. As workers, of course, await the proclamation from the President regarding the future of jobs, what are you anticipating?
Good evening to you. Yes, eagerly anticipating it. You will recall under the previous administration, we had quite a number of reconfiguration of departments. Most of them had merged with each other. Unfortunately, we never faced a situation where an entire department was closed down. A couple of years ago, there was allegations that public enterprise would get the chopping block. And at that stage, when we inquired from the department, obviously these allegations were not true, but we had prepared for it at that stage. Despite the proclamation or the presidential directive that will come soon, if anticipated, I think we have an agreement at the Public Service Bargaining Chamber as to how or what happens when departments are reconfigured. Despite this directive, the agreement will fall under the current legislation, the Labour Relations Act, and if staff are going to be transferred to the Department of Presidency, obviously we'll have to make sure that their terms and conditions of service are all protected, that there's no loss of jobs, and this process is undertaken so there's not much anxiety for staff, and they are able to sleep peacefully at night knowing full well that the jobs will be kept intact itself.
What does the agreement highlight, as we talk about the probabilities here and what you're hoping for?
Firstly, I think whenever there's an issue regarding closure of a department or there's some restructuring, the first thing that comes to mind is, am my job going to be safe? And I think that's the first priority for us as the Public Servants Association, to ensure that everybody is safe and secure in an employment environment that going forward. So we will have to ensure that when this transfer takes place, that every individual employee, be it a messenger cleaner right up to the director and senior management of the department, is placed appropriately and incompatible with the current job description that they're doing within the environment of the presidency. I think that's our first port of call. In order to do that, we have to obviously engage at the bargaining chamber, the relevant bargaining chamber, which is the SABC, to ensure that this process takes place seamlessly, as we've indicated previously. There is a current framework agreement in place, so we'll have to abide by that agreement, and that agreement very clearly stipulated that there will be no job losses. So we'll obviously take into account those provisions and reassure staff that nobody will lose the job, and from every step of the way we will take our members along to show that this process is transparent and that they are safe and secure in the employment environment.
Yeah, as you make mention of what was being heard or said about the potential big chop of this department, we know that President Cyril Ramaphosa was telling parliamentarians last year during a Q&A session in the National Assembly that one of the first departments that would cease to exist is indeed the Department of Public Enterprises. As you try and ensure that the agreement is abided by, how many jobs are at stake as you go through the process and you reassure members that their jobs are indeed safe?
In the previous reconfiguration that we did, no jobs were lost. So that was the plus factor. And that was one of the provisions and the agreement that we made sure that there would be no job losses. And it's an agreement that was signed by us and the state. So it was a binding agreement, which was very reassuring. The same details or the same outline of the process will take place now. So under the enabling legislation, which is the Labour Relations Act, this will be considered as a transfer of employees. And generally, when the functions are transferred to another department, the employees obviously follow. And we will do everything in our power to ensure that the legislation is used to the best of our benefit, and the agreement, which contains no job losses, that we will make sure that these employees are safe and secure in employment itself. I think at this stage, with the reconfiguration of the departments, we understand the state's intention to rein in the SOEs, place it under the correct ministries because of the problems they encountered with the SOEs. But our main concern is our employees. at this stage. There's just over 200 employees at the Department of Public Enterprise, and we have reassured our members. We've already engaged the department. They've reassured us as well that once the directive has been publicized, they will engage with the PSA to ensure that all employees undertake this transfer in a proper manner, in a lawful manner, in a manner that there's no anxiety among staff. It's a critical stage with the rising unemployment in our country. Nobody wants to do the job. We don't want public enterprise to be part of the statistics of the unemployment figures as well. So we're going to make sure that our members are safe and sound.
Yeah, because within the cluster of enterprises, some important entities in the country, Eskom, Transnet, Denel, and so forth. As you see this process through, what are the options? What will happen to the workers as you try and ensure that no jobs are indeed lost? What is at stake here as this process unfolds?
Well, I think during this process, we need to ensure that when the department, it's not a merger per se, because obviously you get one department that's entirely closing down, and you're taking a whole chunk of employees that do not currently have an employee now, and you're placing them under a department that has their own existing employees. Firstly, they obviously perform entirely two different functions. Presidency obviously perform their own functions with their own staff. You do get staff of our public enterprise, which was responsible for a totally different area of the public service. Trying to match them and place them in the department. Are they going to be performing the same function that they did previously? Will it have to be reskilling of these employees? Are we going to find suitable positions within the Department of Presidency where we can match and place these employees? A lot of things need to be obviously undertaken before this process unfolds. We need to know exactly from the department what is the intention. Are they going to be still performing the old function that they did despite being under a new department, or will the entire job description and the function that they performed previously will be totally eradicated now? If that's going to be a place, we obviously have a mammoth task on our hand of reskilling these employees and making sure that what they've been employed for previously, that they have the necessary skill set to perform new duties or additional duties or reconfigured duties. As I said, it's a mammoth task. Our priority is to make sure, firstly, that everybody's insured, everybody has a job, and secondly, we can deal with the job profiles and how they fit into the new department. It's going to take a process. I think it's going to take a long process before we get this really finalized. Under the previous administration, the reconfiguration and merger of departments was just concluded not so long ago. So I think this process, although it just affects one department at this stage, I think it will also take some time before employees are really settled in the new environment. But rest assured, we will make sure that the employees are safe and sound.
Very well. Thank you so much for that. Of course, just getting some reaction there from the Public Servants Association spokesperson, Claude Naicker, saying that their priority is to ensure that workers do not lose their jobs. 200 jobs, of course, are what we're talking about here when it comes to the Department of Public Enterprises, which is now being given the chop